they used like as a they used
kind of pretty. Yeah,
the template of British settler colonialism.
God, they're looking extra.
The British were literally there as Zionism began, and in 1948 they broke free of the British and then continued essentially this project not under British rule but under their own rule. And one of the, I think, under discussed aspects of the usual Hasbara stuff is, hey, we're only doing what you guys used to do. Look at what you did in World War II. Look at how, you used violence to settle North America. And I actually think that is relevant. So I, in preparation for this debate, I did a little bit of research on the British Empire, and and this, I think, is the core of the only real justification you can make for this. And the British Empire is the history of the British Empire is a history of incredible, horrendous bloodshed.
I need a
which,
fresh
of course,
zip,
I don't know if I have to say, like, Christianity is not into the idea of oppressing other human beings, the idea of mass murder and genocide. But just to give some quick stats on that, the British Empire, as we all know, peaked like in the early 20th century. The jewel in the crown of the British Empire was India.
True.
It's estimated that in India, somewhere between 60 and 165 million people died as a result of the British presence in that land.
True.
One example of that is in 1943, the Bengal famine, where 3 million Indians died while the British exported food from India for their troops. And Churchill famously said he didn't care at all. It's estimated that somewhere around $45 trillion in today's economy of wealth was extracted from India through the Dutch East India Company, which was sort of the British government.
I never did.
India was a wealthy country prior to the British landing there, and afterwards it was extraordinarily impoverished. Extreme poverty went from 23% in 1810 to more than 50% when the British left.
The chat is roasting me. Wait. 1/. Somebody said she's doing it right now on her channel. She's hoeing them out for donations. Yes, come to the channel. Yes, we love you here. Having some fun. The old man's busy. Am I right? And by the way, no, I am not drinking. I had one beer today. Go to my Discord to check my daily calorie inputs. Today was 1,060. Last 2 days have not been great.
Ways in which they could have helped those people. It wasn't really about the potatoes. It was about destroying a colony that they wanted to subjugate. In Kenya in the 1950s, you had an insurgency. Kenya was a British colony in, of course, Africa. 1.5 million Kikuyu people were detained in concentration camps. Around 100,000 people died. They actually created a new type of pliers to crush men's testicles. There were severe beatings, burned with cigarettes, sexual assaults, genital mutilation, rape, all of the things we see today when the veil is lifted on how Palestinians are treated. Actually, the British innovated these things. You can't argue that the British innovated terrorism itself and brought it to the Middle East, where the Zionists then implemented it and then got it back in their face. So we can leave aside Jamaica, Bangladesh, Australia, Egypt, Sudan, the Atlantic slave trade, because I don't want to take too much time. But the history there, and this was claimed to be a Christian nation, and I really don't see how we could argue that could possibly be. But I'll leave that as my opening.
Awesome. Okay, so we got 5-minute rebuttals.
Let's go, Dad. Let's go.
Connor?
Yeah, I love autistic history rants. It's actually one of my favorite things to do.
Rude.
So I'm happy to get into all these details.
We were talking about history. Oh, he's doing a joke.
What I need to parse out, though, because I'm hoping we can parse this out, is that there are things that I'm going to describe as functions of history. So, for instance, like the Chinese were force-fed opium by the British Empire because the British Empire were worried about running a silver deficit internationally, and so they forced the Chinese at gunpoint to purchase opium. Okay, that's obviously not morally good. When we're talking about empire and empire being perhaps an instrumental good, we're talking about it. I would say that we could talk about all these like human war crimes, abuses, sex, rape, all that kind of stuff. We can talk about their portions of history and be.
Okay, so just to break it down for you really simply, the argument here is, I should do this full time, live debate reactions. I'm smart enough and I've got tits for it too. Okay, anyways, so basically the argument here is that, so is Zionism compatible with Christianity? Connor is making the argument that, that land is the Holy Land and it's the land of the Jewish religion. And so he's sort of making a more conceptual, abstract argument that the Jewish people should be able to return there, whereas my dad is saying Zionism is part of, like, it's like the last colonial project left. And if you look at other colonial projects, they are about domination and subjugation and torture and exploitation of other peoples. And that is in no way Christian. And so no matter what the reasoning is, the purported reasoning for the Zionist movement, it is essentially another settler colonial project that the Jews inherited from the British. And that's not fundamental. That's not compatible with Christianity. So that's the argument here on both sides, as I'm seeing it.
Trying to move it back to Zionism in Israel. You brought up the British mandated Palestine, but the only reason why the British mandated Palestine existed was because of the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. And the Ottoman Empire itself was a historical successor to the caliphates. So, like, there's a whole bunch of history to break down there, where effectively the dominant force for, I don't know, 1,500 years was effectively Islam. And then we have to look at that, Jerusalem and Judea and former Israel being things that were attacked by the Romans. Well, attacked by the Greeks, then attacked by the Romans, and then the diaspora, and then Islam, and then Zionism. So we have a lot of history to get into. So I kind of gave you a lot. I want to see what thread you yank on first. So we could do, I think we should do Israel first, because technically that's like 3,000 years worth of history, arguably. And then we could move into colonialism, which I would argue is probably the last 1,000.
They only have 88.
Yes, we got, you have 2 more minutes.
Oh, that's terrible.
That's okay. I would rather, we got a lot of ground to cover, so I'd rather let him respond and then get into it.
Gosh, they used to get like 800 watching. Counterpoints is a big. Is he maybe co-streaming this? Maybe me and Counterpoints are sucking all the viewers. He usually co-streams his debates. Bruh. What an idiot. He forgot to go live. Okay. Well, I can't blame it on that.
Act secular and had repudiated the religion of Judaism. Jewish rabbis at the time Zionism became a movement, which actually started, interestingly, with English Christians.
Thank you for the 2.
Before even Jews got a hold of it. But the rabbis throughout the world almost unanimously told their Jewish congregations not to participate in this movement, because it was only through the Messiah would come and lead them back to the Holy Land. And until then, they were not to take it.
Merry Christmas.
They were not to take that project into their own hands. So in defiance of the rabbis, the Jews, and I think that's an interesting statement, because they really were anti-Jews. They were Jews who hated their own Jewishness, which is the essence of what a Jewish person is, took it upon themselves to engage in a colonial project. And the reason the English were into it is because they could both,
that's what he said before I did this.
I mean, primarily.
I was like, I should react live. And he was like, oh, like Rachel Wilson. Should I go Mr. E mode? He's killing it, guys. Thoughts?
In the expansion of their empire. Of course, it really didn't get going until really far too late. And colonialism already had been destroyed by both World War I and World War II. So as far as where we want to go in talking about things, I have no problem with saying we can start with Zionism, then move, because I do believe the larger movement is settler colonialism, European colonialism, which is not 1,000 years old, but it started obviously at the discovery of the New World in the late 15th century, really not till much later. Of course, there has been colonialism in some sense throughout history. The Roman Empire engaged in colonial projects, you could say, but European colonialism really is what we're talking about, I think, here. And I acknowledge that history itself is low. I would just say I'm not sure if this is what the argument Connor's making, but if we want to say like history is filled with non-utopian situations, of course that's true. But when we're arguing Christianity, Christians should hold themselves to quite a high standard, which acknowledged every individual Christian is not going to pursue. But you would have obviously you would judge any historical action by Christian people on the basis of Christianity, and settler colonialism doesn't both look stupid from a historical point of view and also unchristian. So we can just go ahead and get right into it. I have no problem with the back and forth.
Okay. And then, sorry, I'm getting some feedback from chat saying that all they can see is the banner. And I'm a little confused by them.
Tell Connor he's not actually
maybe
live.
It could be on my end, but I just want to make sure. Oh. So
okay, he just
I know what it was. I clicked on the apologies to my chat. Okay, we've already done intros. My bad. I was supposed to click a button. So, anyways, what we've done so far is we've talked about Zionism and we've talked about settler colonialism, and I think that's right now we're about to get into openings. So yeah, let's start. If you'll indulge me in narrative real quick, I'm sure you'll reject the narrative by the time that I'm done.
Okay.
But I still want to go through the narrative. So the narrative is that you have Abraham and the original Jews in the approximate area of the Eastern Mediterranean and the Sinai and all that kind of stuff. And that's when the covenant is first made, and that's where the promise between the Euphrates and the Nile happens. And what ends up happening as a part of the covenant, which is supposed to be prophecy, is that, you're going to be enslaved and you're going to suffer for 400 years and this, that, the other, which is, if you believe the prophecy, then that's supposed to be the time when they're in Egypt. Now, it's estimated that the Semitic exodus of people from...
Oh, Toilet Bowl Earth is in the DMs. He's alive. Come on. Watch this with me. I'm not going to forgive that. If he does not watch this with me. Come on, Toilet. I know you're watching. Keep me company, Pookie. Look at my outfit. I wore this for you. Please.
It's a historical event.
A lot of pressure right now.
What's kind of not disputed is that approximately around that time, that's where the kingdom of Israel and Judea and all that stuff, and the kingdoms and the tribes, they first get established, and then that kind of exists up until the time of Jesus, but they're successfully conquered. They're conquered by the Persians, they're conquered by the Babylonians, they're partially put into exile, they're conquered by the Greeks, then they're conquered by the Romans, and that's realistically the time of Jesus. And so Jesus comes along with the New Testament, and then we have another, I think it's the second temple. They obviously have a few temples, but the second temple is destroyed. And then what happens is the Jews live for approximately another 1,000 years, largely concentrating in that area. But after the Crusader sacks of
91 on YouTube, 51 on Kick. Hit the likes, guys. We got 140 in the box. Let's go.
Starts in earnest, where the Jews spread all over the world, including in Jerusalem, including in Europe, including in North Africa, including in Spain, including Ethiopia, including et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're all over the place.
Bro is
And so the
yapping.
argument has been that effectively the Jewish people have lived in exile since the sack of Jerusalem up until the 19th century. And I do concede that I have heard it stated many times that the vast majority of Zionists do not believe in biblical prophecy.
Oh my God, I was wondering what's stinking here, and I was like, oh my God, I just took a shower. Like, what is that? It's the ground beef that I used for my music video that I did not throw out. I'm like, what the hell? Am I mold? Am I rotting? Okay. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely that.
Divine right, it's because of historical affinity, I suppose. There were debates about like putting in Israel in the United States. There were debates about a new Israel, I think in Siberia. There was debates about new Israel all over the place.
Madagascar, Uganda.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But ultimately, what ended up happening as a level of historical function is that Zionism ended up being the most popular, or Israeli Zionism ended up being the most popular destination, and then that was accelerated during World War II. So I don't think that.
I'm sorry, guys. I really should have been on OBS. That TTS would have been funny. I really do apologize. I don't know what got into me. I think it's that I wanted to set it up beforehand and didn't know how to do that without using StreamYard. Anyways,
Support the Zionist project. They believe that the Jews are entitled to that land as prophesied in the covenant.
The American Christians.
Yes.
Saying, yeah. Christian Zionism is somewhat different than the actual Jewish Zionism, like Theodor Herzl and all that kind of stuff. It's largely, I hate to say this, but it's largely just a function of being bought off. I think one of the biggest televangelists in America was given a huge jet in order to blend this. Christian Zionism is very hard to justify. You can do it. Ted Cruz, who's probably the biggest supporter of Zionism, went on Tucker Carlson and he could only quote one verse from the Bible, which said, if you bless Israel, God will bless you. And that's pretty much all he said. I'm not saying he's a theologian, but obviously the subsequent question was, what does Israel mean, the government of Benjamin Netanyahu? And his answer was yes, which is a very, very difficult argument to make. Israel and Zionism, I think we might agree, Zionism was a movement of nationalism. And so as nationalism became the cool thing to do in Europe, European Jews, not Arab Jews, not Jews elsewhere, said, we got to get in on this. And ironically, because of where they were located in Central and Eastern Europe, they picked up on a lot of the ideas that the National Socialists.
really quick, guys, I just saw in their chat, it says, me mom Holly. I think that joke is lame. And it's not because it's making fun of the Holocaust, but do I have to say that? But I just think it's I think it's like the Jim Bob Jorts joke. It's like being overdone. Me mom and me dad died in the holly, and they're making AI videos about it. It's cringe, in my opinion. I don't think it's really that funny. What do you guys think?
And that when the Goy arose against them, they were just wiped out. And so, in a certain sense, Zionism was this idea of muscular. You look at Benjamin Netanyahu, he tries to present himself as really what is interesting is kind of a.
Exactly. Crucible level humor. Yeah. And Nick is a lot funnier than Andrew Wilson. But it's they overdid it. They overdid it. I was watching this live stream the other day. It was some guy, I forget his name, he was explaining the Zoomers' lack of empathy for the Holocaust with, he was doing this whole stream about the Finkelstein thing, and the whole chat was just, me mom, me dad, Holly, my mom, dad, my mom died in the Holly, she, in her mouth, she had a lolly. It's guys, please.
The opposite of us. He was inspired by us. Eugenics was started by us. Many of these eugenic projects occurred on the left in America, and Hitler loved it. He just went further than we went on it, but we had it clearly started castrating and all this stuff. People who are deemed mentally inferior. We believe that genetics, cleaning up the
on my chest, yes.
human genome, getting rid of the inferiors,
Correct, I'm that girl.
that was
Hi.
all part of the American left, and he loved it. And so the idea that he's on the right is kind of bizarre. He's just a very, very modern person, but he loved what America and England were up to. As far as your previous
Hitler
history
was
of like
inspired by
the Jews, like that, there's a lot of stuff that's off there, but like it doesn't really matter. I'm just saying it has really nothing to do. I would agree with you. There was a vague sense, the Holy Land, maybe like I might say, if I was going to go back to my homeland, it would be Norway. But I don't have any experience of Norwegian culture really, or like a fourth generation Irishman might go back to Ireland and in some sense feel like it's a homeland and expect everyone to welcome him with a pint of Guinness. But it's sort of silly.
Bro, Connor has 27 watching. Connor usually gets like 200 viewers. I'm not sure what's going on, but he has 27 viewers. I have 85, and Modern Day Debate has like 90. Did YouTube stop botting or something? Like, why do we all just nobody wants to watch anybody cover this? Like, what?
Was seen as impious. God will lead us through the Messiah. So I'm not sure whether we're tackling the. I'm not sure what the point you're trying to make to be to come. We may be sort of missing each other. You believe that Christianity would endorse what's going on in Gaza somehow?
No. But weirdly enough, this is actually something that I think that we could get into that you pointed to a little bit through your segment right there. So Christianity and Judaism, because we're talking about the Old Testament and the New Testament, they're dualist religions. So when you say like, oh, Jews are supposed to be pious and nerdy and kind of pacifistic and reclusive and all that kind of stuff, you can say that, but at the same time, the Old Testament is also filled with philosophers and warrior kings and brave men. Yes, Solomon, David.
There's no philosophy in
David
the
and
Old
Solomon were pacifists, some of the two greatest Jews who ever existed.
No, I'm saying philosophy comes from the Greeks, not from the Jews.
Why does he keep getting his
Okay,
cane?
the love of knowledge.
No, I'm saying philosophy.
What is this? What is this thing that he keeps showing? What is that? Some kind of fidget toy? Very Brian Atlas coded.
Comes from the Greeks, not from the Jews.
Well, those are all
Logos
Greek.
is a Greek word.
You can still say the love of knowledge is also deeply rooted in Judaism and Christianity.
Yeah, to some degree. Okay, yeah, there's wisdom literature, you could say. I don't think philosophy
logos,
per se,
spoken truth, is
a
literally like
massager.
some of the first words in the Bible.
Well, the first words of the Bible were written in Hebrew. You're talking about the first words of the prolegomena of
my
John. In the
shoulders.
beginning was the Word, the Logos, and the Logos was God. And right, that's a combination of Messianic Judaism with, of course, the Hellenistic background. So John was familiar somewhat with the Greek philosophical language, which has remained with us. So I'm not trying to be a smarty pants. I'm not sure what your point is.
No, it's fine. I mean, I appreciate the smarty pants stuff, but the whole point is like that's still, you're saying it's a Greek translation. It's a Greek word, logos obviously being like Greek, but
No, the New Testament was written in Greek.
What's that?
The New Testament was written in Greek. It wasn't translated.
Right, but I'm talking about Genesis, which is in the
Yeah,
Old
that was
Testament.
not written in Greek. Hebrew.
Right. But Genesis is the beginning of the Bible, right?
Yes.
Okay. And in Genesis, it says
cunty.
that, the origin of creation was the spoken truth, was the logos. God was the word.
You're exciting John.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm literally going to Google first Genesis.
Genesis 1. There's no first Genesis.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's quoting
take
John.
In the beginning,
moment,
God
real quick.
created the heaven and earth. Now the
Sorry,
earth was
Connor.
formless and empty. What's that?
Sorry, I thought you were going to take a little longer. I just want to remind everybody that we're doing the Q&A after this, after the...
Yeah, no, Connor's wrong. He's saying in the beginning, the Word, that's from John. That's from the New Testament. In the beginning, look at him looking. Genesis says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't say anything about the Word because the Word was logos, which was in Greek in the New Testament, written by John.
Void and God breathed upon the waters, and right. So
Right.
you're looking for in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That's John, the Gospel of John.
Get wrecked.
John 1:1.
Get wrecked.
Okay.
Colin.
Yeah, which was in
Softball.
some sense a retelling of Genesis.
But you're saying he Greekified it on purpose.
Well, John, amongst all of the writers of the New Testament, was the most, I would say, sophisticated and understood somewhat. I'm not sure he read Socrates, but like you find here the Greek world and the Hebrew world, Athens and Jerusalem come together there.
Weirdly enough, that goes with like a personal theory of mine that I think you're going to agree with, that effectively like the amount of concepts that Christianity blends with the Old Testament, a lot of it is Hellenic.
Christianity,
What is the point?
there was
What is the
definitely,
point?
and also the Roman Empire in its institutions. Like, if I live in a diocese, you live in a diocese, Mike lives in a diocese. The word diocese is Roman, so the idea of breaking up a large group into smaller groups
I know, isn't
and
that weird,
administering
Ty?
it is from
All of a
Roman.
sudden
So,
you're paying
as
more
Catholics, we
attention.
unabashedly say that the root of our religion is the Hebrew scriptures, but that we take Greek philosophy and Roman institutional thinking and roads and all that stuff with us to create like sort of European what has been European Christianity.
I want to ask you a personal question because I think it's relevant to the way that we approach the conversation.
Sure.
So you're saying that you're Catholic, but I know a lot of like Creaster Catholics, right? They go on Christmas, they go on Easter, they don't study the scripture, they don't do any of that kind of stuff. Do you believe that there is a creator God, that he communicated with humanity directly, that he sent his son to die for our sins, and that we are like ransomed in like from sin through his blood, through his sacrifice?
That's one way you could talk about the first part. Absolutely. I mean, you can read. Have you ever heard of like the Nicene Creed? This is like the basics of what.
Have you ever
Most
heard of the
Christians
Nicene
believe.
My
Creed?
dog just wants to come in.
The
dog-
ransom idea is
This is
one
such
way
a
of
shit
talking
show.
about
Do you
salvation
believe
or
that Jesus was
justification.
God? That's what I'm asking.
Oh, absolutely, of course.
Okay, so that's
Hypostatic
where
union, motherfucker.
Those Creaster Catholics do too, generally.
well, probably, but at
not
the same time, the reason why I'm asking that question is because like this is something that from a non-literalist perspective, because I'm not a literalist, like I think
I don't know how they're doing the Trinity. This is supposed to be about whether Zionism and, in a larger sense, like settler colonialism is compatible with Christianity. I don't know what the Trinity has to do with that.
that he should and shouldn't be like, but I don't think that the creator God of the universe put his divine spark in one human being any more than he put it in any other human
cares
being.
what you believe
So I'm
in?
approaching this information from a different perspective.
Yeah, I don't know what if you're a deist. Of course, you're not a literalist. You don't believe in the New Testament, literally.
Right. Well, not literally, right? But the
Well, in any real sense.
You're not a Christian if you don't believe that Christ is God.
Well, you heard George.
This poor sap think he was a Christian?
I'm not throwing any shade on it, but you're not a Christian.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it would be a stretch. You see him as a teacher or something like that.
Yeah, one of the probably the greatest of the prophets.
Because the crux of the New
Okay.
Testament, you must be aware, is that Jesus Christ was God, died on the cross to save us from our sins and offer us salvation and eternal life in heaven with the Father. It's not
Right.
really just like this is an interesting myth. It's like pretty important.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, right.
But
You
that's-
understand that. Okay, I'm not trying to.
Yeah. That's gonna all right. But then that's kind of what I want to get at though.
Sure.
Is so we have these people. They live in the region 3,200 years ago.
Can we land the plane, Connor? What the fuck are you talking about? Okay, you're not a Christian, so? But then again, why are you saying that Zionism is compatible with Christianity if you're not a Christian? What?
If there are
I guess you could arbitrarily defend that position, but
Orthodox and they believe in this, and you're actually
you really should. Like, Connor is just, he's out of his league here. I can tell. I just don't think he knows a lot about religion. I don't think he knows a lot about Christianity. So to debate whether X is compatible with Christianity, I just don't think he's qualified to really discuss it.
atheist
That's what I'm picking up on.
list.
Yeah,
They're
okay.
not-
But let's be just a little more careful, and I don't think I'm really rebutting what you're saying. Even in the scriptural account, you're familiar that the word Jews comes from the tribe of Judah, which is one of 12 tribes. Okay, so the other tribes were seen as having abandoned the faith at a certain point after, I think it maybe even have been before the time of David. And so actually what we call Palestinian.
Guys, $5 or one gifted sub, I'll take my hair out of the bun because I want to show you. All of a sudden I have curly hair. If you want to see my new curly hair, $5 or one gifted sub.
Tribes. And this idea that Arabs came and from somewhere else there. Actually, the DNA evidence is quite clear.
So dry.
These people are actually much closer to the ones, the people who are part of that kingdom, the kingdom of Israel, okay, which then became the kingdom of Judah. It'd be a little bit like saying if the South had won, or even like just Texas to Florida had rebelled and won, okay, that's what the United States, in a sense, became in terms of Israel, because it was just a part of it that remained faithful. Then those people remained practicing. Okay, and you're missing the big part. They had a number of
the book of genocide. That's actually that's a good one. That's a good one to use. That's a good one. If I was in that debate, I'd be reading chat. If I was in this debate, I'd be reading chat and I'd use it. Let's go be Heron. Let's go be Heron. All right, curly hair reveal. I'll have it play in the background. Hold on.
The idea, it happened gradually over time, and this idea that we were booted all at once is not true, which I think you're right to say. But anyways, it's just a very complicated history. So the irony is the average Ashkenazi Jew, which is these Central and Eastern European Jews, are only genetically about 20% actually of their genetics is from the Middle East. They're largely Eastern Europeans genetically, and you can actually see a lot of the features of Eastern Europeans in these people. You could pretty much visually tell an Ashkenazi Jew from a.
This happened naturally, by the way. I don't know what's going on. I've never had curly hair in my life. It's obviously kind of matted and fried, but like all of a sudden it's, I don't know if it's curly, but it's like, it's got ringlets and stuff. So I don't know what to do about that, but it's kind of a mess. I was going to straighten it, but then I was like, you know what? I don't know. Something is kind of cool. I've never had curly hair before.
Because what
They're the
happened-
ruling class. Oh, no, they're the underclass.
Well, and that's where I was going to actually move into the next historical point, I suppose. So if we skip all the way into the 19th century, where effectively we say maybe the diaspora happened over a broad series of time, it didn't all happen during the Crusades,
Right.
and then we have this secular Ashkenazi movement that moves back in the 19th century, but then along with that, what ends up happening is the British mandated Palestine after the Ottoman collapse. Then that tension though. This is one of the things that I see a lot of critics of Israel kind of.
Well, the Ottoman Empire
really
didn't
quickly.
collapse; it was destroyed by the Allied powers.
Well,
But
right.
it was weak.
But
It was weak.
the destruction of the Ottoman Empire was effectively like, even before World War I, they were calling it like the old sick man of Europe, right?
Yeah,
because it wasn't even like fully a European power. They were obviously in Turkey, but they held like Greece at the time. So they all kind of knew that it was on the verge of collapse, and they knew that the war would push it over the edge.
Sure.
And so they were like, what was going to happen once we push the Ottoman Empire over the edge?
Right.
And so my point there, though, is that in the 19th century, if you ask the Israeli sympathetic people and the Israelites themselves, they would say that many of the colonies that they had, many of the
You mean
kibbutzim-
Israelis? Israelites would be an Old Testament term.
The Israelis.
Zionists? I'm not sure.
Oh my god. This isn't even a debate. Connor doesn't know what he's talking about.
People who were immigrating to Palestine,
Yeah,
I suppose,
Zionists, I think.
at the time. Okay. So the Zionists would say that as the Ottoman Empire was collapsing, they went in relative good faith and purchased.
I'm not saying my dad isn't doing a good job. I'm just saying that I think I trigger Connor. Because I remember him being way angrier last time. Maybe he was just in a different mood, but Like, I got him to, like, he was, like, talking about being a cop, and I said that wasn't very impressive. He was like, I was a cop for 3 years, and I was like, I don't know if you think that's a flex, but it's not really that impressive, and I don't know. I think I could wind him up. Maybe, I don't know. But then again, that's not really a debate, so.
And so what ended up happening there was an ethno-religious tension where, yes, technically, legally, the people who were living on the land didn't have the property rights to the property, but they were evicted
He's
through
a
a
very
legal
insecure
process.
person.
But that's kind
Yeah,
of
you're going to get into here it is true that originally wealthy European Jews gathered a lot of money to purchase land. Okay, but the tradition.
Ben's being too nice. I think that he's just realizing that Connor is underprepared. And he told me before this that he was going to be nice. He was like, I should act better, right? I was like, I don't know. Like, why? I say go for it. Come on. Let's get some blood in this battle. Isn't police academy only like 6 months of schooling? I don't know what it is, but like in America, if you say like I was a police officer for 15 years, it's like, okay, fine, I can respect that. But like 3 years, like I don't, nobody really cares. It's like, okay, so you were a police officer for a little while and then you stopped.
Yeah, that the workers would remain there. And what happened was the Zionists is they kicked everyone.
It is part of his grift, yeah. I'm pretty sure he said 3 years. It was something quite short like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't even think really cops consider you a real cop if you're only a cop for 3 years.
It's not true of all colonial projects, but the idea is that
he has this cope that it was because of his family that he stopped, because of his like kids and his wife. But like, why would your wife want you to quit a good job like being a cop to be a live streamer? You know what I mean? What, are you going to get killed in the field? Like, that's very rare.
If they fight on the side of the British against
make any sense.
the Turks or the Muslims, they say we're going to give you all this land, which is like your land, and then they screwed them over with the Balfour Declaration and
True.
Subsequently by planting a settler colony there. Okay, and but the British always did this. They always made ridiculous promises to both sides, and it was a disastrous mess. But this is called realpolitik. It was
British
like
did do
a
that.
British. I do believe that the British Empire is fundamentally insane, as is the American Empire, because on the one hand, you're saying you're Christian. On the other hand, you've got a brutal empire. On the one hand, and it's I think it's foundationally crazy in that the British broke. We all know that the King of England declared himself the Pope of England because he couldn't have a son. That's not a reason to break from 1,000 years of tradition. But once you do it, I guess you got to kind of justify it in some way. And so you say, maybe we're a special people. And I do believe the birth of a certain type of racism came from that, because it's only that group in Europe which thought that they had a God-given right to rule over the entire world. The Portuguese, the Spanish, the French, all of whom had big colonies.
I don't know, Hans. I could see it either way. I don't know. I like the fight. But you can't really force it if there's nothing to fight about. My dad is a nice guy. It's just that people are usually incredibly rude to him, so he matches the energy. But Connor's being like super, respectful or whatever, so he's matching that energy.
Given any of the rights of an actual nation.
this is,
they can have a
I just wanna
gambling
say
casino.
We got 15,
Oh, he said it's
16
too hot.
minutes
Okay,
left
I'm
on
gonna turn the heat down.
the
1 sec. I'll be
open
back.
discussion.
Yep.
So just want to
wait, what comes after the open discussion? Because we just
5
got started.
Yeah, we can go another 20 rather than 15 if you guys want. It seems you're being very cordial. I appreciate that. But I do want to see if we can get it to refocus on the specific of, is Zionism compatible with Christianity?
Well, I think Connor conceded this by saying, like, you can't justify what's going on in Gaza from Christianity.
Well,
okay, so that's Zionism in action.
Well,
so
hold
I
on.
don't know.
So let's.
Connor just lost the
we can
debate. Let's
dig
just
into
move
that,
on.
but I know the
It's
historical
over.
rants might not be everybody's cup of autism,
Oh,
but
One
it's
more thing I
definitely
want to
mine.
say is Basil Problem. You're not fooling anyone with your new screen name, 1 over and squared. We know it's you. But you're not sending super chats now, so I'm not going to read any of those comments. Just want to let you know. So send your super chats now, guys. We got about 20 minutes left on the open discussion, and then we'll get into the closing statements.
Yeah. So, I'll try to focus on it, but realistically, like, well, all we did was we just opened this box. That's all we've done so far. We haven't even started playing with the toys yet.
Well, can you justify what's going on in Gaza?
Well,
from the basis of Christianity? I mean, I
give me 1 second, because I'll talk about the dualism, then I'll move into Gaza specifically. Okay.
No, I'm interested. What do you mean by dualism?
When it comes to the concept of dualism within religion, where I first heard this was actually in reference to Islam. Because if you actually read the Quran, like the first half of it's okay, there's some violent stuff in there, but realistically, the second half of it is kind of brutal. And what I heard from
Connor has no viewers. Connor has 37. I mean, it's a low viewership night for all parties involved, but his numbers are terrible. I've seen him with 200 in there.
For, the prophet is not making an edict for all times everywhere. Let's just massacre everyone. Yeah. He's specifically talking to his warriors, his people, his tribe right before they go into battle. And as a result, you have to evaluate it within the context of its time. Sure. But what that does for modern Muslims is that they can look to the earlier, more peaceful passages. For instance, like everybody's favorite surah is that, he who saves a life, it's as if he saved all of humanity, and he who takes a life, it's as if he's killed all of humanity. That there's a not so peaceful passage immediately after that, but let's ignore that for now. Okay. And you could live like a really pacifistic, chill life, just saying like, no, the prophet said that only God knows where people are going. So I'm not going to be a judgmental prick. And also I'm going to do my best to save lives. And so as a result, you could take a few surahs and be a really chill Muslim. However, if you were more interested in warfare, as was the case in the 20th century, you can take a bunch of surahs from when Muhammad was at war, and then you could use that to justify holy war.
Sure.
And so I think that
I just want to say, I'm not trying to rush you guys or put like a strict cap on it. We can go a little longer. We have a general format. And if you guys have the time, I mean, I'm not trying to.
I'm good.
Number one, I got the time. Okay. But number two, I am bringing this specifically to Gaza and Christianity. So I think that if you look at the Crusades, there is not very much in the New Testament that you could use to justify the Crusades. Jesus Christ himself would say, like, he who lives by the sword dies by. When your enemy strikes you on the cheek, you give him another. When a man walks with you 1 mile, or asks you to walk with him 1 mile, you go 2. Okay. When somebody asks you for the cloak off of your back, you also give them your jacket.
Let's go there real quick, okay? Because
Crusades talk.
I don't think that you would characterize Catholicism as a pacifist religion. Would you?
No, probably because of the dualism that I'm alluding to, but go ahead.
I don't know what you mean by dualism. Is usually the idea that the material and the spiritual worlds are sort of like at war with each other. I'm not sure if that's what you mean by it.
No, the way that I mean it is that there's moral flexibility within separate contexts.
Thank you, J Moss.
Yeah, like the idea that like all religions can be interpreted kind of liberally,
Let's go.
or more conservatively.
Is that too loud?
It sounds even
more violently or pacifistically.
It's pretty hard to.
Thanks, Montero.
Yes, Islam. You can have a kind of.
You know what? Let's make even more money. Can we do $1? Wait, $5. $10 for 5 squats, or $10 for 10 jumping jacks on camera. I'll put another banner up. Let's make some more money and burn some calories.
Writings of the New Testament lean away from violence.
I'll add your $2.
Though in certain contexts.
No, never mind. It has to be 10 or 5.
It is allowed. So the justification for the Crusades was that the Holy Land had been under Muslim rule, and Christians, and this is historically, again, like not very well known, Christians at the time found it very important to take pilgrimages. It was a huge part of Christian culture. And for centuries, they were allowed to do so. Much like today, you can go to Israel and visit the holy sites, even though it's sort of an anti-Christian country. They don't allow any proselytizing, but they're happy to take our tourist dollars and also try to persuade us to be Zionists. But you can go, and Catholicism, there's plenty of Catholic and Orthodox monasteries and stuff in the Holy Land. The Seljuk Turks, I believe, started killing pilgrims, peaceful pilgrims, on their way to the Holy Land. And so the Crusades, at least in their origin, were an attempt to protect pilgrims, to allow them access to something which at the time, we don't really understand it as much as Christians, was considered really, really important. It was a little bit like Muslims now who go to the I forget
Mecca.
what you call it, Mecca, right? Like it's kind
they
of
go on
like
the
that.
The cube.
You didn't have to do it, whereas like it's part of the Muslim religion, but like it was considered to be like something very important and pious, and we should have access to those holy sites because relics and things were very important. Holy sites were very important.
Well, and if they're
which they continue to be in Catholicism, but not to the extent it was then.
and if you want to
So
take
I don't have any
actual
problem with
debate
the
is on
Crusades.
modern day debate.
well, and if you want to
theory.
take a more defensive posture in reference to the Crusades, that's fine. But I think there were also just as likely, proselytizers, preachers, priests at the time, who just knew that the average person wasn't too familiar with the Bible and specific verses or was literate or anything like that. And so as a result, it came down to the Eastern Roman Empire, which was ruled by Christians for a large part and ruled all the way down through Egypt. Basically, 70% of their territory had evaporated over the course of a few centuries due to
Yeah.
Arab incursion.
Yeah.
And as a result, that's another tribe. And we're fighting for God, and those people are heretics. So go fight those people over there, and we'll rubber stamp you either in the material plane. You could get wealth, titles, nobility, access, all that stuff. But in the spiritual plane, you're also guaranteed an easy pass to heaven. And so that's where like the more like cynical. I don't think you find that in scripture, but I do think that you find that historically from leaders of the time.
Okay, so if someone is like, if there's a group of people that are attacking churches here in America, I would defend those churches with my life gladly.
Sure, but would you
weapons.
take life in order to preserve it? Because that's
Absolutely,
where you get into
no problem.
how
If
you.
someone is trying to murder Christians, I will defend the Christians. Priests, the church herself doesn't really carry weapons unless you think the Swiss guards are scary. They're just a decorative, right? So the church largely, but it is true that the popes, in order to encourage men with, like kings with like these armies who are going to lose a lot, they did offer them that if they conquered lands there, good for you, good on you, right? And eventually, those kings want stuff, right? They want money, they want tribute, they want all that stuff. So the church was sort of ambivalent about that. Like, sure, go ahead, take land from the Muslims. But in a sense, I know it sounds trite, but like they did start it. So we were okay with it.
You're not going to find any. You're not going to find any caliphate sweeping on my end. But
the Muslims can get aggressive at times. I don't know exactly what the Turks were thinking, but like occasionally you get groups who feel like okay, and there is a certain argument within. I think that Muslim imperialism makes a certain amount of sense.
It does.
They don't mind the idea of converting at the.
I wish I had upped the saturation on my dad's camera just a little bit to make him look tanner, because I'm super pale. But if you just up the saturation, anyways.
Decision to embrace. Now that's not always played itself out perfectly by any stretch of the imagination, but that is our thing. That's how we conquered the Roman Empire.
That's the point that I wanted to make, though. With the stakes so high, if you're a literalist.
Mustache.
Okay, so once again, I'm not a literalist. But if you are a Jewish person, then effectively we are not members of the tribe. Well, if you're a literalist, I should say. If you're a literalist Jewish person, then there's like the Noahite laws or something like that, and they're effectively
Noahide.
Yeah, the Noahide.
Get schooled,
those are the
Connor.
rules that like non-Jews are supposed to
No, he
follow
looks
in order
good.
to be good.
I put some bronzer on and some concealer to hide the eye bags. It's just that the saturation is unfortunately a little too low.
They're not really concerned with our salvation or connection with God, right? They're the
Judaism
chosen
is not an expansionist religion.
people. Right. Whereas Christianity is universalist, but it's universalist in the fact that but the only way to God or
I was homeschooled by my dad. He was very, very nice. He taught me grammar. Good times.
there, only belief, only faith, right? Whereas,
okay, right, but works. You're using a Protestant lens for.
well, there's contradictory scripture right there, right, where they say, what is it? It's like faith does not require works, and that's like one scripture, but then the other scripture is that like faith without works is dead.
Yes,
and that's like another scripture. So,
but primarily, Catholics and Protestants and Orthodox all agree that God gives all human beings salvation freely, without them deserving it. Yes, that would be true.
But then when it comes to Islam, though, effectively what they're saying is that we believe the same things that Jews believe. There is one creator God who cares about humanity. However, the Christians are a heretical sect who have started worshiping a great prophet as if he were God. And so that's kind of where, in my opinion, these beliefs, if you believe them literally, they actually are super important because it determines where human souls go when they die. And so if they're separated from God, if they're cast into hell, if they're, given eternal punishment, or if they're unified with the Godhead, or they're, going to heaven or whatever, this is probably, at least according to Islam, I know for sure, and to Christianity to greater and lesser degrees, this existence is a shadow. It's a shadow of the world to come. It's not even real, like it's real, but it's not as real as the world to come. And so the world here is.
That's what you mean by dualism?
What's that?
That's what you mean by dualism?
No, I was meaning it pacifism versus violence. I think there's way that's like, so for instance, like Jesus also has, I think, the parable of the Minas. And he also has that thing where he's like, I did not come to unify the world. I didn't come to, bring the olive branch. I came to bring the sword. I will set brother against brother and blah, 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 blah. There's ways to, in his later passages right before he's killed, there's ways to interpret what Christ said as effectively like, hey, I'm going to die right now, but when I come back, it's fucking on. And so you could like...
Oh, undoubtedly, yes.
So you could interpret
we
some
will
of that
be judged. We will be judged.
Well, right. But that's where that, and you also add in the temple where he's like whipping the money changers and all that kind of stuff. You can arrive at a non-pacifistic Christian translation. You have to ignore a few specific scriptures from Jesus, but you can get there.
Well, I mean, there really were no Christian pacifists throughout history. Some people, of course, Christian pacifists would
the
say,
early martyrs were crucified and fed in the Colosseums, like fed to lions in the Colosseum.
But that doesn't mean they wouldn't have burned heretics at the stake if they had power to do so. It's just a strategy. Prior to the embrace of the Roman Empire of Christianity, which was largely done without warfare, I think it was conversion which took place. That was.
Let's go, Damius with the 1,000 kicks. Let's go. Thank you, Damius. Do you want squats or jumping jacks? I'm sorry. I'm doing some Facebook Marketplace stuff. I got distracted. I'm sorry. Squats or chat chooses? Okay, 1 for squats, 2 for jumping jacks. 1 for squats, 2 for jumping jacks. Come on, guys, make it happen. I'll do it as we watch.
Too wealthy and powerful, and then everyone turns against her, and then we start off as a poor. You know what I mean? So even here in New England,
1, 2, 2.
Catholicism used to be incredibly powerful. I remember being in Fenway Park.
2.
The Blue Angels flew over, and Cardinal Law came out in all his regalia. And 3 years later, it's like everyone hates the Catholic Church in the Northeast. So, I mean, that sort of happens, but we generally would say that we don't have a problem. Obviously, the Vatican has enormous wealth in terms of the museums and the churches, and we don't have a problem with that. So we're not Amish.
Well, you asked me, how do you get a Christian perspective on condoning genocide in Gaza? And by the way, this is not my perspective. I'm just articulating it, okay?
Yeah.
So
There you go.
And by the way, you
5
could say
for
this
good
is
luck.
ahistorical and partially ascriptural, but I still think you could get there and see what I'm pushing at. So
right, get
the
the
same
blood
way
moving.
that
Look at the belly.
Judaism, promised the Jews. I don't know what the right term is,
that's where we're
but
working
promised,
on
the old covenant between the.
It was the Israelites at the time
sack
you were
of
talking,
laundry.
they were called the Israelites.
Guys, I'm gonna just
Right.
ask that we figure out a way to dovetail this back into the.
That's why I'm doing the workouts. Thank you. And that's why I have the workout set to keep myself accountable. I have like 3 workouts because I was inspired because I did it on stream. I was like, okay, we should do this more often. I got 3 workout sets. Haven't done a damn workout yet. Yeah, the calorie count's not good. Yesterday I had 2410. The day before I had 2600. I'm so fucking fat. I'm so fucking fat. Legit, I'm so fat. Need to hold myself accountable.
The Philistines. And it's even argued that etymologically, the Romans wanted to punish the Jewish folk, the Judeans and the Israelites. They wanted to punish them for their rebellions, which is why they named the territory what was it? It was like Syria, Palestina or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, but that itself was a word root all the way back to Philistine. So then you can say, oh, well, the Israelites are just the new Jews fulfilling the old covenant, and they're fighting the Philistines. And because Muhammad, peace be upon him, by the way, is such an obvious warlord charlatan who took a young wife and this, that, the other thing that you say about Islam. Therefore, this is just, God's people doing what God's people do.
I understand that. I think what you're trying to say
My
is
volume
that
is low.
Islam can have this kind of brutal interpretation or a kind of
turn it
more
up.
liberal interpretation. Judaism certainly can have the same thing. Christianity can't, is my problem. So, but also all of those stories in the Old Testament, the Jews or the Israelites were led by God and were incredibly pious. And the only reason they won any of their battles was because God was really fighting the battles for them. I don't know if you know, there's a famous little thing where the Israelites are far outnumbered. I forget who it was, and the leader is saying to God, "It's like a 10,000 of them to 1,000 of us." And God goes, "Yeah, you know what? Go take your men and go drink at the water, and notice who drinks by leaning over and lapping it up, and who picks the water up." So 9 out of 10 pick the water up in their hands. He said, "Get rid of all them." So now your odds are 10 times worse. Now go fight, right? Because the point was, it is God doing the fighting, not you. And if God's on your side, this is the concept of holy war. If God's on your side, you don't have to worry about anything. And I think you could see this sometimes in Wahhabism. It's a similar kind of thing. Yeah, the West has bigger weapons and all this kind of stuff, but we're just gonna, God will, Allahu Akbar, right? It's God will give us victory.
God's the greatest.
And you can be completely irrational. Catholicism early on formed the just war tradition. And we do not have any, no pope has really ever said, God told me to do this and it's going to happen. We have the just war tradition, which has to do with, that you have to have a good chance of winning. It's kind of a secular analysis. Don't fight a war if it's stupid to fight. We don't claim that God's going to somehow miraculously kind of make Christians win when they're going to lose. And we would actually counsel against arguing even what would otherwise be a justified war if you're going to lose. So that comes from Aquinas, but it comes from Augustine as well. The Christian tradition really doesn't have a holy war concept in it, although individual cuckoo clocks within the tradition have felt that way. And also Zionism did not operate that way. When Zionism largely has myths that, in 1948, unbelievably, we claimed independence. In 67, every single time there was brutal calculation. It was usually that they weren't defending themselves. It's loaded with propaganda and lies. They're calculating huge propaganda wing. So almost everything they say from their beginning is lies and propaganda. And the idea that they really kicked some ass in Gaza, you could say that's true, but all they did is wipe out women and children and buildings. I mean, it's a cowardly fight by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, far be it for me to throw rocks from the side or whatever. But the thing about it is, I think that the Israelis,
Tony, he's not reading the chat, so you can go over there or not.
Jewish people of 15 million.
Yes.
And I think it's 7 million in Israel proper.
9, I think 9.
When you add up surrounding states, when you add up Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Egypt
Yep.
and Saudi Arabia, I mean, they outnumber them by what, like a factor of 100 or 1,000 to 1. Like, it's actually batshit.
Well, if you want to take the Muslim world as a whole, it's in the billions. So yeah, right.
So
I wouldn't pick a fight with Muslims. to fight with any group.
Realistically, if every single Muslim just started walking towards Israel, there's actually little they could do besides drop nukes, right? But that's kind of why they've had this like hard scrabble 20th century history where they got nuclear technology, where they got military industrial complex technology, where they developed microchips, where they fought, what was it? It was like 56, 67, 73, 2005, and now.
Yeah.
And so the point is it's hard to read. If your neighbor strikes you on the cheek, then, give him your other one and then be like, okay, let's drop JDAMs on Gaza. Like, it's really hard to read those things.
What are JDAMs?
But joint direct attack munitions, they're 500-pound bombs.
Oh,
But the point is, though, that if you're a Baptist or if you're a prosperity preacher, right? You were mentioning how sometimes in faiths, people view wealth or success as God's blessing. The only reason why you're doing well is because God has blessed you.
it's much more of an Old Testament idea. Yes.
Well, right. But I know that in particularly like Southern evangelical circles, there are entire churches dedicated to the concept of prosperity gospel, and therefore they materially reward their preachers. And so the point is that I would never call these people not Christian. Now, I think they get a shitload wrong in reference to the scripture. I think they're heretics in a lot of ways, but I would never call them not Christian. And I think that they would.
Are you talking about Zionists?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is I think effectively the Christian Zionist narrative is almost exactly what I've articulated, which is Israel in the current day is the same as Israel 3,000 years ago. The current Palestinians are the same as the Philistines from back in the day. Here's all these Old Testament things that justify why the state of Israel needs to own this territory. And here's why it's okay for men, women, and children to get hit with conventional bombs. Fuck them. And then also, there is a root of, I would say, Islamophobia has a pussy connotation, but there is a hostility to Islam, particularly post 9/11, that helps Christians endorse Israel in its fight in the West Bank and Gaza.
Right. Yeah. And the Israeli government loves it when there are Muslim attacks on Jews or Christians, because then it makes us feel like we have a common enemy.
Weirdly enough, you understand that was the argument from the dancing Israelis? The dancing. So 9/11, 2001 happens, and there were some Jewish guys who were working. They allegedly had Mossad ties, but they were working for a moving company, and they were seen rejoicing as the 9/11 terror attacks happened.
Yeah.
And they were pulled over by American law enforcement like an hour later or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they were like, hey, people said you were celebrating and videotaping. What the fuck is wrong with you, basically?
Right.
And the Israeli guys were like, no, you don't get it. We're on your team. We know that this is, basically probably Muslim dickheads. And so as a result, we are going to fight together against the jihadist terrorists.
Right.
And so, you're right. Whenever a jihadist attack happens in the Western world, I'm sure that Zionists celebrate because they know America is going to be even more invested in their cause.
Right. Which we have no reason to be invested in. But anyways, 9/11 was an attack.
How did they know? How did they know? Interesting question. How would they know ahead of time, as the buildings are collapsing, that it was the Muslims?
That Muslims have with us, so that if we stopped doing that, then we wouldn't have these attacks. So it's kind of...
He also didn't like that we were involved in defending Saudi Arabian oil fields. He also didn't like that the Muslim and North African world was so weak that Kafirs, he didn't view us as believers.
But the Hasbara is the lie is George Bush, right? When he went and stood on the smoldering remains, he's like, well, they don't like us having freedoms. They're
to be clear, Bin Laden did not like gay people or strip clubs or alcohol. He also did not like any of those things.
Yeah, but that's not the
based. Yeah, they create degenerates like you, Connor. I'm confused as to the problem.
Is that it's true that I think that the vast majority of the motivation for 9/11 and jihadist terrorism in general is geopolitical grievance dressed in religious grievance. Like, if I had to guess, it's like 70-30.
It's a political movement.
Politics, 30% religion.
Yeah.
And the religion's effectively window dressing.
All right, guys.
However,
we're going to do another 10 minutes back and forth like this. Then we have to get into the closing statements, just because do have to make sure the people that sent the super chats in the beginning are here to hear them as well. Keep
of course,
somewhat cordial for them. Maybe wrap it up around 10, 15, 10:30. You guys can go a lot longer in the Q&A back and forth as well, because they can keep sending super chats while y'all are elaborating on whatever topics they bring up.
Yeah, I got 10:20 on my clock right now. If you
I'm
want to
in
wrap,
Texas, so it's 9:20 here. So 9:30, we'll go ahead
Perfect.
and get into the closing statements.
yeah, that works for me. All I was going to say, though, is that Osama bin Laden himself was critical of the Muslim world for being too secular, too decadent, too corrupted by Western influence. And he was actually quoted as saying that Afghanistan under the Taliban.
No, this host isn't as fun as the last one. I miss Ryan. I miss Ryan. Well, we're gonna move on to the super chats. I've been having a cold beer, guys. We're having a great time. What a cutie. I miss Ryan. Where's Ryan?
Cool. A lot of
My kids are going to hear me in here if I bring out the guitar, but I did enjoy your little ditty there.
Or whatever. But, okay, yeah.
they did think that God was going to forgive them because they had died in holy war.
I do understand that. I do think maybe somewhere in their heads, some of them did feel like, we're martyrs, right? And the concept of martyrdom in Christianity is significantly different because it includes suicide bombers. We don't have any suicide bomber martyrs here in Christianity and Catholicism and in Orthodoxy, although there are saints who were soldiers and warriors, but not like terrorists. That's kind of too far afield for us. But I just want to say in general, if you take, this is the kind of left idea here. What was Zionism about? Okay, so it was a secular movement. Whether
I don't know. I didn't keep it private for any particular reason. Dude, I'm selling something. I'm sorry. I'm selling something on Facebook Marketplace, and this guy is hitting me up, and he's like, he's like overdoing it. He's like, Grace, awesome name. Anyways, we'll even do the normal price. My wife and I just moved into a new house. It's a huge help, holiday help. We're probably gonna help start a sober living facility. We have 3 apartments. We need to furnish them. Please, if we could swing by tomorrow and drop you $100 just to deposit. And it's like, I can't tell whether I'm being scammed or whether he's just like really nice and like overdoing it. I really can't tell, because how would I be getting scammed? I'm the one selling it. I'm just like, I just feel like he's overdoing it. Who's like, Grace, great name. Thanks.
one is buying it, and now that it's 4K on the screen, what it looks like, it's kind of like you can the Zionists can make an argument for it, but it falls flat. And I think
maybe morally, but but also when we're talking about, we mentioned realpolitik earlier. So what's true is that in the wake of World War II, I think there was a concerted political effort in order to say a third of the global Jewish population was wiped out in World War II. As a result, the Jews are not safe unless they have an established homeland. Israel is their established homeland, and the Christian nationalist narrative.
I mean, he sold things. He has a 5-star rating, so he sold 17 things, so it seems legit.
The Christian nationalist narrative during World War II on part of the Germans was that the Jews had broken the new covenant. They had rejected Jesus. They'd rejected the Messiah. They were no longer relevant in God's plan. They were vestigial. They were like a T-Rex's forward arms. They were not necessary for the existence of the world. And
All right, let's
therefore,
focus.
whether they lived or died or were in Israel or the British Mandate or if they were wiped off of the face of the planet, did not matter in God's scheme of things. That was the Christian national, and that also rooted a
I don't know
lot
what you're
of
talking about. What are you talking about? Christian nationalist?
Christian,
That's something that was made up on the
German
internet like
Christian
5 years
nationalists
ago.
who
Just some
specifically
furniture,
were
guys.
allied
Just
with the
furniture.
Nazis and were part of their
okay.
power block. Okay. Now, that narrative though was common throughout like medieval Europe, was that the Jews were vestigial, they'd broken the covenant, they killed the Savior, et cetera, et cetera. They don't need to exist. Which is why you have
not
politics.
according to the official documents of the church, but there was a lot of ethnic
Sentiment.
tension.
Yeah, lay sentiment. But anyways, the point is that the Zio-conservative narrative, which
No,
I think
hold
has
on.
dominated the late 20th century, absolutely. Ever since like the United States and Israel thawed their relations in the 60s and 70s and Israel became more capitalistic, effectively the Zionist narrative is that the Abrahamic religions owe their historical and spiritual roots to the Jews. The Jews have been unfairly maligned and massacred throughout history for the past several thousand years. As a result, Israel needs to
John
exist
Thorp
as
in
a
the
safe
chat,
haven for the Jews.
6'7".
And the most evident
Hilarious as always.
the most evident
Good one- good-
need for
good-
that security
good one, bro.
is the Holocaust, which
one.
I understand might be like really far off for people who are like 20 years old. But my grandparents were World War II veterans, right? Like I grew up looking them in the eyeballs. So the Holocaust was not that long ago. And so yeah, that's the narrative.
What's
But
next?
the
We
problem
mom
is,
and
what
dad.
is the least safe place for Jews in the world right now? The Middle East.
I don't think. Well, the Middle East and North Africa for sure, but I don't think Israel statistically
Israel.
is that dangerous.
Did you see the rockets coming down on Tel Aviv? You think that's
Yeah,
happening to
and
Jews in New York?
how many people have they lost since October 7th, 2023? Like,
Yeah, I know that,
1,500?
but eventually, like you said, like you've got all these people who you've pissed off to no end. They're over a billion strong. I mean, here's the proof of that. The wealthy Jews are leaving en masse from Israel back to
True.
the cosmopolitan
They have a real
centers
problem
in
with
Europe
that.
and America where they came from.
Yep.
Only
But I
the
think the-
poor people are left.
but I think the Abraham
If I
Accords,
was
though-
Jewish, let me ask you this question: if you were Jewish in Tel Aviv, and you saw those rockets coming down, you had to hide in the shelters, and you had enough wealth that you could easily move back to New York with your relatives and friends.
Yeah, I'd live
Wouldn't
in
you?
Miami.
Wouldn't
Yeah.
you?
yeah, of course.
Whatever, London, Miami, Paris, whatever.
But hold on. But I want to make this point though, because I think it's something where your side of the aisle might be a little bit disappointed. The Abraham Accords negotiated by Jared Kushner, which are effectively like overlapping fields of interest between the Muslim world and Israel. I think that's why you've seen Saudi female newscasters without hijabs challenging leaders of Hamas. I think that's why you've seen Turkey.
Am I fucking crazy, or is Connor not even close to the topic? Am I crazy? Why are we talking about Saudi Arabian women not wearing hijabs on the news program? What the fuck is this boomer ass take? Like what?
Indictment of the state of Israel,
women's freedom
where,
and Islam. I
you
care
think
about
that.
that.
The
What
entire
the
Muslim
fuck
world
does
was
that
going to
have
get
to do with
pissed off
anything?
and swarm them for what happened.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see it happening.
Well, the people are in solidarity with the Palestinians. The leaders are bought off, as was always been what Westerners do with.
But the people aren't doing shit.
Arabs. Oh, well, I mean, I think there's some concern. That's why those talks were
Yeah,
called
me and my
off.
dad
That's why the
debated
Saudis
this guy.
said,
Yeah.
like, no, we got to resolve the problem. Obviously, if you're rulers who are alienating your people, that can only last for so long until you have a rebellion. Granted, a lot of these people with CIA help, like, repress any rebellion. But
I would say the Middle East and North Africa. I know we're supposed to wrap up momentarily, but I would say the Middle East and North Africa is tired. They're fucking tired. And what I would say is
Okay.
the Iraq conflict. Obviously, I mean that arguably started all the way back in 1992. But between the Iran-Iraq war, the Persian Gulf War, the invasion of Iraq, the civil war in Syria, the Arab awakening in the early 2010s, the mass immigration to Europe,
I did see
ISIS,
it, John.
all that kind of stuff. I think the Middle East and North Africa is fucking.
If I could just say
tired.
as a closing, like that was the idea of the British Empire, is that you beat these people down, you brutalize them, you rape them, you murder, you torture,
Hang on, John,
and
I'm
you
just
eventually
busy.
beat their spirit down. I don't think that's happened. And in fact, the fact that that Hamas has successfully resisted, the U.S. Secretary of State said last year they have more recruits than they had more people in Hamas than at the beginning of this whole thing. It's only served to spur the kind of movement of like it's only violence.
Do you want to do that together, Terry?
So I don't think you're right about that. I get
Go
that.
ice skating.
These people are generally
Let's go to the
peaceful
mall.
people. I think it's interesting that Muslims act more like Christians than Christians do. They turn the other cheek. Iran gets bombed and they basically don't respond. And they let us know we're going to send a couple of little things just to placate our people. They're becoming Christians, more Christian than Christians are, because they're playing the long game and they're going to win. And the Israelis are going to lose. I will tell you right now, it's 2025. By 2045, there will be no state of Israel in the shape it's in now. The apartheid state cannot last. I think it'll be done within 10 years, and you'll have like a South Africa, which will have a lot of problems like the South Africans do. But it's over. And if people want to keep doing this Ben Shapiro screaming and yelling and telling us
DM
all
you,
that
baby
we've
cakes.
now got a gun to our
We ain't
head,
got no
they're welcome to do
girlfriends,
that. But it's
so-
over. It's over. We don't buy it.
You got free time.
We've heard enough of the Hasbara. You're not really doing it even. You're not even trying. So
But I'll bet you $100 in the opposite direction. We could evaluate this bet by 2050, assuming that we're both alive by that
Let's
time.
let that be the last thing right there, because I do have to say we're in, I think, subscriber only mode. So if you want to super chat and get your chat read in the Q&A after the closing statements here, you can do that if you want to get through.
I mean, fuck it. I'll send a super chat, but I don't know what to say.
Because it looks like we got some good stuff to go through here.
What should I say? I'll send a super chat.
It's probably expanded its borders into Gaza and the West Bank, and we'll see who's right in 2050,
Ooh, you know
providing
what?
we're both.
I'd like to debate Connor that Islam is more woman friendly than modern America. How about that? I would take that. I would take that. What do you think? I'm no fan of Islam either, but
Q&As.
Who goes first?
I believe it's going to be.
No, I
the
want to
opposite
support
of
with the donation.
The person who opened.
So I'll go first because you opened first.
Yeah, I know,
think,
Hans.
right?
I couldn't
Okay,
follow.
so I think largely we kind of missed each other during most of that debate. I'm happy to I'm happy.
All right, let's
It's in a
see
sense
here.
better than lack